So next time you walk into a grocery store, I want you to just stop for a second, right in the produce section and look around.
Oh yeah, just take it all in.
Right. You're standing in front of these brightly lit refrigerated cases that stretch the length of a city block. And periodically, those little hidden nozzles spray a perfectly calibrated mist over the greens.
Keeps everything looking incredibly crisp.
Exactly. Towers of fruit, walls of leafy greens, and this staggering variety of produce that, frankly, has absolutely no business being available in the middle of winter.
Yeah, the sheer logistics of it are wild.
It is a spectacle. The average large supermarket today stocks somewhere between 30,000 and 50,000 individual products. So by any historical measure of just sheer quantity, hunger in the developed world has largely been solved.
It's an absolute marvel of modern agricultural science, really. I mean, we have more food, more readily available, and drastically cheaper relative to our income than at almost any point in human history.
Yeah.
Like, to a time traveler from just a century ago, a modern grocery store would look like science fiction.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we are doing a deep dive today into a stack of research anchored by Louis Bonaldi's fascinating book, The Food Nutrition Crisis. And our mission here is to investigate something called the abundance paradox.
Right, the paradox.
Because hidden inside all of those beautiful, towering displays of misted vegetables is a shockingly dark reality. We have never had more food, but that abundance is hiding a massive nutritional decline compared to the baseline of what our grandparents were eating in the 1940s.
Yeah, we totally solved the quantity equation, but in the process, the actual biological quality of the food, I mean, the micronutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, it's just been quietly slipping away.
Slipping away while we weren't looking.
Exactly. You can eat the exact same volume of food as someone in 1950, but your body is receiving a fraction of the raw materials it actually needs to function.
I have to admit, when I first started reading these sources, I was deeply skeptical.
Oh, sure. Most people are.
Because, I mean, an apple is an apple. A tomato is a tomato. The genetics might be slightly tweaked, but a carrot pulled out of the dirt today seems like it should fundamentally be the exact same chemical structure as a carrot from 70 years ago.
It feels like common sense, right?
Yeah, so before we get into the mechanics of how the food changed, we need the proof. Like, we need to look at the hard data.
Well, the hard data really crystallizes around this landmark 2004 study. It was done by a researcher named Donald R. Davis and his team at the University of Texas at Austin.
And they went straight to the source, right?
They did. They bypassed all the noise and went directly to the U.S. government's own official nutritional records, the USDA food composition data.
Which is like the gold standard database for dietitians.
Exactly. So Davis and his team compared the nutritional profiles of 43 common garden crops from 1950 against those exact same crops in 1999.
And results are just, wow. They found a consistent, statistically significant pattern of decline across almost the entire board.
Staggering drops, really.
Yeah, we are talking about massive median drops in just 50 years. They saw a 38% decline in riboflavin, which is vitamin B2, crucial for cellular energy.
Right.
A 20% drop in vitamin C, a 16% decline in calcium, and a 15% drop in iron.
What's fascinating here is that these aren't isolated outliers.
Right. It's not just one bad harvest.
No, it's not just one bad crop of cabbage. This is a systematic, invisible trend playing out over decades across dozens of completely distinct plant species.
Yeah, hold on. Let me play devil's advocate for a second. I'm looking at data from 1950 compared to 1999. The analytical machines used in laboratories in the 1950s were pretty primitive compared to the late 90s.
That's a fair point.
Couldn't this just be bad historical data? Or, I mean, more likely, plants today are bred to be massive. A strawberry today is the size of a tennis ball.
They really are huge now.
Right. So they hold way more water, so the nutrients look lower by overall weight, but you're really just eating more water.
Right. Well, Davis and his team anticipated that exact critique,
Right.
which is why their methodology was incredibly rigorous.
Okay.
They didn't just measure the fresh, waterlogged weight of the produce. They used a dry weight measurement.
Meaning they dehydrated it?
Yeah. They mathematically removed the water content from both the 1950 plants and the 1999 plants to create a completely level playing field.
Oh, wow.
And even when you completely eliminate the water variable, the declines are unmistakably there. The plant tissue itself, the dry matter, is fundamentally producing less nutrient mass per gram than it used to.
That is just wild to think about, especially when you look at the specific examples Bonaldi highlights in the text. I mean, we're talking about quintessential health foods here.
Oh, the spinach data is heartbreaking.
It really is. The data shows a potato lost 57% of its vitamin C. And spinach, the food we literally tell our kids to eat so they grow up strong. You know, the whole Popeye mythology.
Right, the ultimate superfood.
It lost 39% of its iron and 47% of its riboflavin. But the spinach in the plastic clamshell looks exactly like the spinach from a 1950s garden.
Exactly. The visual cues of the food have remained intact, while the actual nutritional payload has just vanished.
So how does that even happen?
The physical mechanism causing this comes down to something biologists call the dilution effect.
The dilution effect, okay.
To understand it, we have to look at what we asked plant breeders to do over the last 70 years, really following World War II. We asked agriculture to solve global famine.
We needed more food, fast.
Right. We demanded higher yields, faster growth rates, and tough skins that could resist pests.
So we basically asked them to build a better factory widget, and they delivered.
They did. But biology isn't a factory. If you breed a plant to grow twice as fast and produce a piece of fruit that is twice as large, its root system and its internal machinery for synthesizing complex vitamins don't just magically double in capacity.
Right. It's like, imagine you have a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice with a specific concentrated amount of vitamin C.
Okay, good analogy.
If you breed an orange to be twice as large, but it's only capable of pulling the exact same absolute amount of vitamin C from the soil as the smaller heritage orange did, you've essentially just watered down the juice.
Precisely. You watered it down.
The calories are there, the sugar is there, the water is there.
Yeah.
But the nutrient density per sip just plummets.
And the plant is basically prioritizing carbohydrate synthesis over micronutrient uptake at that point.
Because carbs are easier to make.
Way easier. Plants can make carbohydrates, like starches and sugars, relatively easily by just pulling carbon dioxide out of the air and combining it with sunlight and water.
Right, basic photosynthesis.
Exactly. But they cannot manufacture iron or zinc or calcium from sunlight. They have to painstakingly extract those heavy elements from the soil. So when we hyperaccelerate their growth, they pack on the easy carbohydrates, but the slow, complex mineral extraction process simply cannot keep up. The nutrients are literally diluted across a larger volume of plant tissue.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text points out that time itself is a nutritional input.
Yes, time is crucial.
We've been talking about plants, but let's just walk over to the meat aisle for a second. In the 1940s, a traditional farmyard chicken was raised for roughly 112 days.
Right, running around the yard.
Running around, foraging, eating this highly diverse diet of bugs, seeds, grass. And that chicken's meat was dense. But more importantly, its fat was rich in omega-3 fatty acids and fat-soluble vitamins.
Those good fats.
Yeah, but today, the modern commercial broiler chicken is rushed to slaughter weight in just 42 days.
It's astonishing when you compress the growth cycle of a living animal by more than half, and you can find it indoors on a strict, uniform diet of just corn and soy. You fundamentally alter the biological chemistry of its body.
It's entirely different meat.
It is. The fat profile of that modern chicken shifts heavily away from those anti-inflammatory omega-3s and tilts drastically toward inflammatory omega-6s.
Because it just doesn't have the time to develop.
You literally do not give the animal the time, the physical exercise, or the diverse forage required to accumulate the nutritional depth it once had. We just swapped quality for speed.
So we are breeding plants to be giant watered-down versions of themselves, and we're fast-tracking animals so they never develop complex nutrients.
That's the abundance paradox in a nutshell.
But with the plants, I mean, they still need raw materials. Like you said, they don't generate minerals out of thin air. They pull iron and calcium out of the dirt.
Right.
So if the plants are getting bigger but the nutrient density is dropping, the dilution effect only really explains part of the story. Right? The rest of the story has to be underground.
Oh, absolutely. The soil story is perhaps the most critical driver of this entire paradox. Modern agriculture has kind of conditioned us to think of soil as just an inert medium.
Like it's just dirt that holds the plant up.
Exactly. Basically, dirt that just physically holds the roots in place while we pour chemical fertilizers over it. But healthy soil is a living, breathing, incredibly complex biological ecosystem.
Oh, hold on. We use incredibly advanced, highly engineered synthetic fertilizers today. We have these billion-dollar agrochemical companies formulating exactly what plants need.
They certainly market it that way.
By all logic, a farm in 2026 using cutting-edge fertilizer should have richer, more productive soil than a farm in 1940.
Well, That assumption is what the sources refer to as the NPK illusion.
NPK.
Yeah. Conventional synthetic fertilizers are brilliantly designed to supply three primary macronutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, N, P, and K.
Okay, so just the big three?
Just those three, because those elements are the raw fuel for explosive vegetative growth. They make the leaves massive and green, they push rapid root expansion, and they bulk up the fruit.
But what about everything else?
Exactly. They completely ignore the dozens of trace minerals that a plant needs to build complex vitamins, and more importantly, that the human body needs for basic metabolic function.
Things like zinc and magnesium.
Right. Zinc, magnesium, selenium, copper.
You can't just buy a bag of complex soil biology at the local hardware store.
No, you really can't. In a healthy pre-industrial farming system, a plant gets those trace minerals through something called the mycorrhizal network.
Nature's internet.
Yes. Think of the mycorrhizal network as this microscopic deep-sea mining operation. It's a vast web of fungal threads that forms a symbiotic relationship with plant roots.
So the plant and the fungus are working together.
Exactly. The plant is above ground photosynthesizing, creating liquid carbon sugars. But its roots can only reach so far. So the plant feeds those sugars to the fungi.
It pays the fungi in sugar.
Exactly. And in exchange, the fungal threads, which are infinitely thinner and longer than the plant's roots, stretch out deep into the soil. They secrete acids that literally dissolve microscopic bits of rock to mine zinc, copper, and magnesium. And then they shuttle those minerals right back up into the plant's root system. The fungi can multiply a root system's reach by up to 100 times.
That is incredible. But then modern intensive farming rolls in.
And destroys it.
Yeah, we plant intense, continuous monocultures, growing the exact same crop on the exact same dirt year after year, which just starves the biological diversity of the soil.
And it gets worse.
Right, because then we use conventional deep tillage. We drive massive tractors pulling heavy steel plows that churn and flip the earth. And that physical action literally rips those delicate fungal mining networks to shreds every single season.
It's devastating. The network is destroyed and the plant is suddenly cut off from its mineral supply chain.
It's stranded.
Totally stranded, living only on the fast food diet of the N, P, and K fertilizer we dump on it.
Yeah.
And the historical data on this collapse is terrifying.
How bad is it?
Well, the text notes that before industrialization, healthy topsoil organic matter, which is the measure of all that living biology, decaying plant material, and fungal life, it sat comfortably between 3% and 6%.
Okay, 3 to 6%. And today,
on modern, intensively farmed agricultural land, that organic matter has plummeted to below 1 or 2%.
oh my God.
The soil is effectively dead. We are forcing rapidly growing, diluted plants to pull nutrients from an exhausted, sterile medium.
But you know, even if we magically fix the soil tomorrow, we still have a ticking clock. The second that nutrient-poor plant is severed from its roots.
The post-harvest clock?
Yeah, because the moment a plant is harvested, it doesn't just enter some magical stasis. The plant is still alive.
It is alive, it is breathing, and it is under immense stress. It's suddenly cut off from its energy and water source.
Well, panics.
Basically. To stay alive during the transit process, the plant begins to cannibalize its own internal stores of antioxidants, sugars, and vitamins.
And the transit process is not fast. The average piece of produce in the U.S. travels more than 1,500 miles.
Right. It can take 2 to 3 weeks to get from a field in California or Mexico to a dinner plate in New York.
So during those weeks, sitting in the dark, in cold storage trucks and warehouses, sensitive nutrients like vitamin C, folate, and polyphenols are just actively degrading.
The sources point to losses of 20 to 60% of key vitamins just during the transportation phase.
Which brings us to the tragedy of the modern supermarket tomato.
Oh, the tomato.
To survive a 1,500-mile journey in a jostling truck without turning into bruised mush, that tomato has to be picked when it is rock hard and completely green.
It's like a baseball.
Exactly. It's thrown on a truck, driven across the country, and then right before it hits the grocery store distribution center, it is artificially gassed with ethylene.
The ethylene illusion.
Explain that, because it's wild.
So ethylene is a naturally occurring plant hormone, but when applied artificially in a gas chamber, it triggers a rapid superficial chemical reaction that turns the skin of the tomato red.
It's basically makeup.
Yeah, it creates the visual illusion of ripeness. But because that tomato was severed from the vine weeks ago, it never actually went through the biological process of ripening.
So it's missing everything that makes a tomato good.
Right. It never had the time in the sun to synthesize complex sugars. It never developed its full profile of lycopene, those intricate flavor volatiles, or its peak vitamins. It is a strictly cosmetic ripening.
It looks great on the shelf, but it tastes like damp cardboard.
And it completely lacks the specific phytonutrients of a true vine-ripened fruit.
Reading the breakdown of that process gave me a massive aha moment. It completely flips the script on the freezer aisle for me.
Oh, the frozen paradox.
Yes. We've all been conditioned to think fresh is always better. But the sources point out this totally counterintuitive fact.
That frozen might actually be better.
Exactly. A bag of frozen peas, picked and flash frozen right there at the processing facility next to the farm in August, might actually be significantly more nutrient-dense than the quote-unquote fresh peas sitting in the produce aisle.
It makes perfect biological sense. Blanching and flash freezing abruptly stops that post-harvest biological clock. It halts the respiration and the enzymatic breakdown.
It freezes it in time.
Literally. A frozen vegetable processed within hours of harvest locks in its nutritional profile. It holds onto its vitamins far better than a fresh vegetable that has spent 3 weeks slowly starving itself in the back of a refrigerated truck.
And I mean, if we think the fresh produce is facing a crisis, we have to look at the end stage of this entire processing machine. Ultra-processed foods.
Yeah, the heavy industrial stuff, which currently make up an astonishing 57% of the total calories consumed by adults in the U.S.
57%.
It's the majority of the diet.
And we aren't just talking about a tomato losing some vitamin C in a truck anymore. Ultra-processing strips away the natural food matrix entirely.
They tear it down to its basic components.
Right. The factory removes the bran, the germ, the fiber, the naturally occurring oils, and whatever micronutrients are left. And what's left is this slurry of refined starches, synthetic additives, and artificial flavors.
It is a product engineered by scientists to hit a bliss point.
A bliss point of palatability.
Exactly. They find the perfect ratio of salt, sugar, and fat to just keep you eating, and there's practically zero biological intention of providing actual cellular nourishment.
It's a system designed to satisfy the palate, but never to sustain the body.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? We are staring at a system where the soil is dead, the plants are diluted, the transport kills the remaining vitamins, and the factories strip out whatever's left.
It sounds bleak.
It sounds incredibly bleak. Are we just doomed to wander the aisles of the supermarket eating nutrient-poor, artificially reddened food forever?
Thankfully, no. The most hopeful and vital thesis of Bonaldi's entire book is that none of this is a permanent law of nature.
Okay, yeah.
It is entirely fixable, and we don't even have to go backward. We don't have to return to 1940s yields and risk global starvation.
Yeah.
We just need to shift our agricultural methodology. And the proof of concept is already operating at scale.
Yeah, the sources highlight this incredible example, Gabe Brown's farm in North Dakota.
Oh, Gabe Brown is a legend in this space.
He really is. He was a conventional commodity farmer who almost lost everything to a string of bad weather years, and out of sheer financial necessity, he just couldn't afford synthetic chemicals anymore.
Yeah.
So he changed everything.
He had to innovate.
Right. He completely stopped tilling the soil, leaving those fungal networks intact. He planted wildly diverse cover crops so the soil was never bare. And he brought livestock back onto the land.
The holistic grazing method.
Yeah, using intensely managed grazing to naturally trample organic matter and fertilize the fields.
And over 2 decades of those regenerative practices, he didn't just maintain his crop yields. He entirely rebuilt his soil's biology.
On the ground up.
Literally, his soil organic matter skyrocketed from 1.7% back up to over 6%.
Wow.
And when you have 6% organic matter, your soil acts like a sponge for water, and it is teeming with microbial life.
And that changes the food.
Completely. Independent testing of the crops grown in that living, breathing soil shows they test well above the USDA nutritional averages. He proved you can scale biological health.
And it's not just happening in the dirt either. The scientific community is pushing back with biofortification programs.
Right, breeding for nutrition instead of just size.
Take an initiative like Harvest Plus. Instead of breeding purely for yield, scientists are breeding staple crops specifically for nutrient density. They're distributing high-iron beans and high-zinc wheat to farmers in developing nations.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. These crops yield beautifully, but they actively nourish the populations relying on them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we're also seeing a rapid resurgence in shorter supply chains, specifically community-supported agriculture, or CSAs.
Where you buy directly from the farm.
Exactly. You buy a direct share of a local farm's harvest. In a CSA model, the supply chain isn't 3 weeks and 1,500 miles. It's often just 48 hours from the dirt to your kitchen.
And that changes the ripening process.
Completely. The farmer can pick a tomato at peak ripeness because it doesn't need a tough skin to survive a cross-country truck ride.
This knowledge really completely changes how you walk through a grocery store. You aren't just a passive consumer anymore.
You're making informed choices.
Right. You understand the hidden, locked-in value in the frozen food section. You understand why buying seasonal local produce from a farmer's market or a CSA isn't just like a trendy aesthetic lifestyle choice.
It's science.
It is a massive, quantifiable upgrade in the actual chemical nutrition you are giving your cells.
This raises an important question, though. We spent a lot of time talking about how breeding for size, yield, and shelf life bred the nutrition out of our food. But Bonaldi's research explicitly links that lost nutrition to something else.
Lost flavor.
Lost flavor. The complex chemical compounds that make a truly ripe, soil-grown heirloom tomato taste so rich and incredible are the exact same phytochemicals and antioxidants that protect human health.
So flavor and nutrition are chemically linked.
Intimately linked.
So that's it. Since the flavor compounds are chemically identical to the nutrients, what if the modern obesity epidemic is partly driven by our own biology desperately trying to save us?
That is a fascinating way to look at it.
Right. What if our bodies are over-consuming calories because they are constantly searching for the missing micronutrients? We sit down and eat massive quantities of ultra-processed foods loaded with artificial flavors that trick our brains into expecting a nutritional payoff that never actually arrives.
The brain detects the flavor of a strawberry. It prepares for the vitamins of a strawberry.
And it gets nothing but refined starch.
Nothing but empty calories.
It leaves you with this incredible thought to mull over. Are we endlessly hungry, trapped in a cycle of eating thousands of excess calories, simply because our bodies know they are still malnourished?